Thank you, Anra, and thanks to Culture 24 for inviting me to be part of this session today. My name is Claire Buckley, and I work for Julie's Bicycle. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a middle-aged white Irish woman speaking to you from London, and I'm wearing a green top. So I am going to talk about the role of digital in meeting environmental goals and tackling the climate and nature crisis. And I'm going to bring in the experience and insights of my work and the work of Julie's Bicycle. For those of you who don't know Julie's Bicycle, we are a charity and we support environmental and climate action within the cultural and creative sector. We have three key objectives: supporting culture to become net zero and to restore nature, inspiring public action on climate and ecology, and championing environmental justice and fairness. I'm going to focus on two key strands within this presentation. I'm going to look at digital for environmental goods and environmentally good digital. I think to start with, it's really important to bear in mind that digital is a means to an end, and it is not an end in itself. We can use it for environmental good, and we have, I'm seeing this happen increasingly, and I've got some nice examples to share. We need to do much more about understanding the environmental impacts of digital also. So for the first key point on digital for environmental good, there is a lot of good things which digital can help us to do. It can, in some cases, help to reduce or avoid impacts. It is really great in helping to build understanding and inform action. And it can be an amazing tool to support awareness raising, engagement, and collaboration. A couple of examples of how digital can and is helping to avoid or reduce impacts, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So from virtual meetings and virtual couriers, which do avoid travel impacts, digital publications, which have a lower impact than print publications. Another great example is how we can use digital through smart meters and digital energy monitoring systems to help us manage and reduce energy use. On the travel point, it's something we say very often, virtual meetings have much lower impact than in-person meetings if traveling is involved. We say this, we don't often see the information which backs that up, but I will say that we do have this evidence, and that the impact in particular of virtual meetings is very minimal compared with in-person meetings, in particular where any kind of flying is involved for the travel. This example here is from the Canadian National Arts Centre, and they looked at an event called Green Rooms, and they looked at three different scenarios: a traditional single location event with long haul travel. They looked at the online gathering with video conference and streaming, and they looked at a distributed hub model of events programmed across different sites with the aim of minimizing long haul travel. They did the full online version, and they calculated that it basically was by far the best thing to do environmentally and had 99% less emissions. And they share all the calculations and conclusions which they made on their website as well. In terms of how digital can help us to build understanding and inform action, this is an example from a fantastic company called Map Hubs, who we've done some work with, and they use digital tools, real-time and near real-time information to look at what is happening in terms of deforestation around palm oil and forestry activities, and use that information and share that information to support activists and to support action. Another example is from ourselves, from Julie's Bicycle. We have a set of tools, the Creative Green tools, which are free carbon calculators. And they've been going for a long time and have really been a first key step for many, many organizations in understanding their impacts. The tools are also used by Arts Council, national portfolio organizations, and every year we look at that information, feed it into Arts Council England's environmental reporting, and it has been a really invaluable source of information fitting into that programme. And more recently, we've also been looking at how to develop those tools to get some e-learning to go along with that. So that's a very exciting digital development for us. We now have a digital lead for the first time, which is fantastic, and a team of people who are looking really at how we can use digital ourselves to have even greater impact. Another really interesting example is the networked condition, which is the result of a collaboration between 3 arts organizations: Fast Familiar, Abandon Normal Devices, and Arts Catalysts, part of an accelerator program we deliver on behalf of the Arts Council. And they have looked at digital artwork, digital events. They've done some amazing case studies, and they have also developed a tool for carbon footprinting live streamed events, artworks, and projects. And it has had a really great resonance and has had great uptake within the sector as well. Fast Familiar is one of the partners in the network condition, and they create audience-centric theatre. And they have a whole strand around climate action using a lot of digital engagement as well. Do What You Must is one lovely example of one of their projects, which is scenario-based digital tool to model better decision-making in the face of the risks and uncertainty around climate change. Another very different example, we were involved in the Green Libraries partnership. And Nature Visuals is a pilot project between Natural England and Hampshire Libraries. And what they are doing is piloting an approach to connect communities and urban areas to nature, supported by a digital map. And they have a very strong focus on disadvantaged communities within that pilot project. And then from more from the visual arts world, makers of Imaginary Worlds have developed Home Zero, which is a mixed reality installation bringing real people, real experiences, and virtual tools together. It's been co-designed with Nottingham families, and it's about engaging families to imagine a sustainable future and think creatively about how to make change and positive environmental change happen starting at home. And what's lovely is it has a very nice connection to the past and uses National Gallery paintings as the starting point. A very different example is a project, a digital artwork called Earth Speaker, which uses an app to inviting children to speak up for the planet and bringing their messages to adults and including European policymakers so that children can bring their messages and be heard. And this is a digital artwork by Studio Oliver Lyson, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a few minutes. In terms of, we see lots of great ways in which digital engagement is helping to help build understanding and engage people on what they can do environmentally. In 2020, we ran a program together with Arts Admin called Season for Change. And it started as COVID kicked off, and we had to do a big switch to digital and online activities. And when we did the evaluation, what was really good was that we were able to get a good sense of digital engagement and how many more people were engaged because of the online activity, and that the artists and cultural organizations involved in it did manage to get a greater reach because of the digital activity, and that it also gave creatives and cultural organizations an opportunity to experiment more with digital engagements. In terms of that extended reach, I did also want to say we are doing an event on the 13th of October called We Make Tomorrow. And we're doing this as a hybrid event at Birmingham Rep, but also online to extend the reach and make sure we get as many people as possible. So there's some examples of the good stuff that we can do through digital and digital engagement in particular. A few kind of key reflections on this is don't do digital just for the sake of it. Think about first, what is it you're trying to achieve and with whom, and then how digital can help. Be inclusive in digital engagement in particular. Who are your audiences? Think about older people, people with disabilities, with no or limited digital literacy skills, or indeed access to digital devices. And think about how to make what you do as collaborative as possible, co-designing with target audiences or making digital tools and content open source. In terms of environmentally good digital, first of all, while we may think digital is invisible, doesn't have an impact, it does. Everything digital has a physical impact. All of those network systems, devices which we use to store, transmit, and use data, digital marketing, digital comms, digital production. And we really need to be more aware of the range of environmental impacts of these digital activities and the technology which we use. Three key areas of impact. Energy, of course, this is the one we tend to focus on, but when we think about all of the hardware and devices on which they operate, there is the huge environmental and human cost of sourcing all of the minerals and materials for that infrastructure that is needed. And then there is the environmental human cost of e-waste, which is a huge, huge problem. More digital, more technology means more devices, networks, data connection. That means more energy. That means more materials, resource depletion, habitat destruction, pollution, and more e-waste. So, and picking up on what Bridget said, it is not only about carbon, there is a lot more to it. As digital volumes grow, so too does energy use and demand. There is some good news in that data center energy consumption is growing, but incrementally and not exponentially. The big tech companies and data center operators have become some of the world's biggest investors in and buyers of renewable energy. And for example, moving to the clouds has been shown to be a lot more energy efficient. But there is still concern about growing, that impacts will continue to grow because efficiency gains are slowing because of rebound effects, and in particular, new demands from technologies such as artificial intelligence, virtual reality, NFTs, and blockchain. So, and this is something which is becoming really increasingly used within the cultural and heritage worlds. Electronic devices are among the most resource-intensive products per weight on the planet. They contain rare earth materials, metals, plastic, and glass. So it is important also to think about the devices on which digital runs. Mining for those minerals and metals, such as gold and cobalt, is very water intensive. It causes deforestation, land degradation, and leaves behind toxic wastewater and soil. And some of the minerals which are mined in conditions of armed conflict, human rights abuses, and miners often work in unsafe conditions for unfair wages. E-waste is a massive problem. The World Economic Forum has estimated that there were 50 million tons of e-waste in 2018, and 20% of that was dealt with responsibly. So also something really important to bear in mind. I'm just going to speak briefly of a few examples of projects that we have worked on. Earthspeaker, the app, digital artwork I mentioned from Studio Oliver Lyson. And we worked with computer experts from the University of Bristol, specialised in sustainability, to try and get a sense of the carbon footprint of this work. And it was quite a crazy piece of work, and very detailed, which we could not have done without the university supports. Basically, while the overall footprint calculated 29 tons is not a massive one, but it was really useful in understanding a few key things. It showed us, while it was essentially a digital project, the physical impact was still bigger than the digital, and it helped us and it helped the studio to understand a few key things which they need to bear in mind going forward. And two key things which I would point out is when you are doing digital projects or digital engagements, ask and build in environmental questions from the very start. Ask the tech companies, the service providers for more and better reporting. They are not doing well enough on this. And build energy efficiency into the design of whatever the digital activity it is. We also worked last year with Arts Council England to help them better understand their impacts and develop a new set of environmental commitments and actions. One of the areas of focus was digital and technology. It helped them to get a good baseline understanding of where they were at and identify a few key issues. They have identified technology as one of their 6 priority areas going forward, focusing on engaging with key technology and digital service providers. They need to start with better understanding and focus on action. And they've identified a few key actions, and all of this information they have made publicly available. So they're looking at engaging with key digital service providers to better understand their impacts, establishing better processes around ICT equipment and what happens to it at the end of their life, better understanding energy use for the technology that they have, looking at their website and what they can do about that, looking at digital publications and how to have better practice on that, and raising staff awareness on digital and technology impacts and what staff can do. So I think what's really important is that if we see lots of great examples of digital engagement around environmental issues, but also making sure that what you do is environmentally sound. And back to Fast Familiar, who I mentioned earlier, who's involved in the network condition and has its own strand of climate action artwork, but they're also looking at their own digital impacts, and some examples here and of information they've shared about their experience in doing that. What's great to see is that there are a lot of emerging solutions and companies, digital service providers, who are trying to support organizations in doing better environmentally. Here are a few examples: Whole Grain Digital, Urgio, and Supercool. So if you are looking at this, just also remember to see what kind of support you can get. A few resources here. So we brought out a guide on sustainability and digital, I think it was last year. You can access the Art Speaker reports, which has some great insights and information in it. And two really good resources I would recommend as well is Climate Impact Partners, Carbon Footprints of the Internet, and the Arts Marketing Association Digital Heritage Hub, which has some fantastic resources around digital engagement and environment. So a few key things to say around better environmentally good digital is: do develop your understanding of digital impacts, don't fixate on carbon footprinting, and focus on what you can do to reduce impacts. Put a green lens as early as possible in your digital planning strategy and activities. If you have an environmental strategy, make digital a part of it. If you have a digital strategy, make environment a part of it, and make sure that people have the knowledge and skills that they need. So just to conclude, I think what's really important is we can do a lot of environmental goods digitally, but digital for environmental good must go hand in hand with environmentally good digital. Thank you.